Welcome back to the channel. The sea has always been both a protector and a destroyer. It gives life and it takes it away. Along the ragged coastlines of Maine, where waves crash like cannon fire against the black rocks, stand the old lighthouses silent, guardians of the shore. They were built to save lives, to guide ships home. But in 1902, one lighthouse went dark, and with its darkness came tragedy, mystery, and whispers of something not of this world. This is the story of the lighthouse keepers. Log. In the night the sea claimed more than just ships. The year was 1902. The small town of Harrington, Maine, lived in perpetual dialogue with the ocean. Fishing vessels stood out before dawn, merchant ships cut across the horizon, and families prayed that the lighthouse's beacon would hold steady through the storms. The lighthouse itself, perched on a lonely granite cliff, was built in 1836. Its walls were thick, its tower tall, its flame visible for 20 miles. For decades, it kept sailors safe. But in December 1902, the keeper, a man named Elias Garrison, began writing strange things in his daily logbook. Elias was no ordinary man. He was 50 years old, weathered by decades of storms, yet sharp, disciplined, and trusted by the townsfolk. He had never missed lighting the beacon. His entries were usually routine: wind direction, tide levels, passing ships. But on December 7th, the handwriting changes, the tone shifts, and the words stop being about the sea's conditions and start being about the sea itself. The first entry simply read, "The sea is speaking." Elias had worked the lighthouse for nearly 15 years. His wife had died young and he had no children. The tower was his home, the sea his constant companion. Though the townsfolk respected him, he was known to be solitary. At first, the isolation suited him. But isolation has a way of gnawing at the mind. Many keepers before him reported strange sensations, phantom voices, dreams of drowning, the feeling of eyes watching from the waves. Elias, however, had never once complained until December of 1902. On that date, Elias's routine log shifted from steady handwriting to sentences that wandered across the page, letters scrawled larger than usual. His second entry read, "They are climbing the rocks." He offered no explanation, no names, no description of who they were. But later entries would elaborate. He wrote of figures moving in the foam, dragging themselves out of the water. He described hands too long for human proportions, nails like hooks, hair dripping like seaweed. Voices, he said, that gurgled as though droning and speaking all at once. Some entries read almost like conversations, fragments of words like "guide us," "light," "return." When locals visited to deliver supplies, they noticed changes in Elias. His once steady eyes had become sunken and bloodshot. He often paused mid-sentence, tilting his head as though listening. One fisherman remembered how Elias whispered into the sea breeze, nodding slowly as if in agreement with something only he could hear. He seemed distant, yet more fixated on the waves than ever. A week later came his final entry, "I will not light it tonight." That very night, a storm rolled across the coast. Clouds split open, lightning lit the cliffs, and rain fell in sheets. The lighthouse, for the first time in Elias's career, stayed dark. The ocean churned. Ships, without the guiding beam, wandered. Blind, 3 vessels met their doom against the rocks. The Morning Star, a brigantine carrying lumber, the Edith May, a schooner filled with salt cod, and a nameless fishing vessel crewed by local men. One after another, their hulls splintered, masts snapped like kindling. Their crews screamed for help, but the waves swallowed them dot by morning. The shore was a graveyard of shattered timbers and bloated bodies. Entire families in Harrington lost fathers, brothers, sons. They looked to the lighthouse for answers, but it was dark, lifeless. and Elias Garrison was gone. Searchers combed the cliffs, lanterns in hand. They found Elias's bed unmade, his boots by the door, his oilskin coat still hanging. His dinner sat half-eaten, the logbook was open on his desk, but the man himself was nowhere to be found. There were no footprints in the snow, no signs of struggle. The sea roared below, indifferent. Some believed Elias had thrown himself from the cliffs in despair. Others suspected madness had driven him into the night, but there were no remains. Only his words, scrawled into the log, "I will not light." Tonight. In the weeks that followed, the townsfolk whispered. Fishermen reported seeing pale shapes among the wreckage, slipping back into the surf. At night, those who lived near the cliffs claimed they heard voices carried by the windlow, mournful like the cries of the drowned. Some swore Elias's voice was among them. The logbook was examined by authorities, then returned to the archives. Its pages smelled faintly of salt water, though the lighthouse itself had remained dry. On several pages, the ink had bled unnaturally, as though soaked by unseen tides. Few men lasted long at the Harrington Lighthouse after Elias. The first replacement, in 1903, resigned within 3 months, citing unbearable dreams. The next, a veteran seaman, quit after seeing wet footprints leading up the tower stairs, though no visitor had come. One particularly chilling account came from a keeper in 1911, who swore he saw pale, gasping figures pacing the rocks below the tower. When he climbed to the lantern room, he found words scratched into the glass. "Light the way." The scratches came from inside the room. The keeper fled the very next morning. As the years went on, the story grew. Children dared each other to climb the cliffs at night and listen for whispers. Fishermen poured rum into the sea before sailing, muttering prayers to calm the drowned. Some said the beacon sometimes flickered, dimming on stormy nights as though Elias still decided whether ships deserved safe passage. In 1979, a historian examining the logbook discovered faint impressions on its back cover. Under special light, the markings revealed a hidden message. "Do not light it. It belongs to them now." The handwriting did not match Elias's. It was shakier, uneven, as though written by someone half-conscious, or by something that had never written before. Though the lighthouse was automated in the mid-20th century, strange reports persist. The fishermen say their radios sometimes pick up ghostly transmissions near Harrington's coast. Voices, distorted, watery, repeating Elias's final words. The sea is speaking. They are climbing the rocks. "I will not light it tonight." Local divers who explored the wreck sites of the Morning Star and Edith May reported feeling tugged downward by unseen currents. One diver claimed to see pale hands reaching from the silt, clawing toward his mask. He quit diving forever. Tourists who visit the lighthouse say the air inside feels heavy, damp, and that sometimes, just sometimes, they hear slow, deliberate footsteps pacing just above them. In the lantern room. In the 1920s, another strange discovery was made, but rarely spoken of outside of Harrington. A set of archived maritime records mentioned complaints from captains sailing near the lighthouse. They reported seeing a faint light not from the tower, but from the rocks below. A greenish glow, as if lanterns were burning under the sea. When they approached, the glow would vanish, and the waters would churn violently, nearly capsizing their ships. In 1935, the U.S. Lighthouse Board sent an inspector to Harrington after complaints of malfunctioning light. His diary, later found among his belongings, contained only one peculiar line dated March 3rd. "The keeper walks at night, but there's no keeper here." The inspector resigned shortly after and never worked for the board again. Elderly townsfolk still recall stories passed down from their grandparents. A fisherman's wife claimed to hear knocking on her cottage door at midnight in the winter of 1903, weeks after Elias vanished. When she opened it, she found no one, only puddles of salt water leading down to the shore. Another child claimed to see a man waving from the lighthouse tower window. Though the tower was empty that year, legends began spreading of the drowned keepers, sailors who perished in the 1902 wrecks, now forever bound to Elias climbing the rocks each night, trying to reclaim the light that betrayed them. Not all agreed that Elias betrayed the town. Some believed he was forced. The phrasing of his log entries, especially the last, suggested resignation more than choice. "I will not light it tonight" reads less like rebellion and more like obedience. Obedience to what or to whom? Later scholars noted that Elias's scrawls resembled ancient maritime superstitions, particularly Celtic legends of the Selkie and drowned spirits luring men to sea. One Irish sailor who visited Harrington in 1915 claimed the descriptions in the logbook matched the calling. Ones, water spirits said to demand offerings of men or ships. The sailor warned that by refusing the light, Elias may have been offering the vessels as sacrifices. In 1992, a Coast Guard officer stationed near Harrington reported seeing movement on the cliffs during a storm. He described dozens of figures crawling upward, illuminated briefly by lightning. When he looked again, they were gone. His partner dismissed it as a trick of the storm, but the officer swore that among the figures, he saw a mat and a lighthouse. Keepers coat. By the 2000s, paranormal investigators began visiting the lighthouse. One group captured an audio recording inside the tower, where a male voice whispered clearly, "It belongs to them now." The voice was compared to historical samples of Elias Garrison's handwriting style read aloud by actors. To the shock of the team, locals listening to the tape claimed the voice matched Elias's own tone from oral